RT has gained exclusive access to the Syrian president, who continues to run the country from Damascus in defiance of foreign calls to step down. Bashar Assad slammed those calls from abroad for him to go and warned against outside intervention in Syria. Well, I'm now joined by RT's Sophie, who interviewed the embattled leader in the capital just days ago, really. It will air very soon on RT.
Hi, Anissa. Good to be back.
What were your first impressions of Assad as a person and as a president?
Okay, Assad as a person, so we had a chance to speak about 15 minutes before the interview. Very educated, very down to earth, definitely not a megalomaniac, contrary to what people portray him in the media. Very well informed. You'll be surprised. You know, like you got a sense from the ABC Barbara Walters interview when she was asking questions that he didn't really know what she was talking about, because she would tell him precise things and he was like, I don't know that, I don't know that. He knows everything. I think maybe that interview actually had an impact on him. He's very well informed. He feels like, I think, that this whole thing that's happening, it's like a cancer that either he has to beat or he has to die of it, but there is no other way out. When we talk about Western leaders telling him to step down, I mean, it kind of sounds ridiculous because he really has nowhere to go. Like, even if he were to step down, like, where would he go? And we asked him that in an interview. So
we can actually listen to a piece of the Assad interview, Sophie speaking to him about the push for foreign intervention.
I think the price of this invasion, if it's happened, is going too big, more than the whole world can afford. Because if you have problem in Syria, and we are this last stronghold of secularism and stability in the region, and coexistence, let's say, it will have a domino effect that will affect the world from the Atlantic to the Pacific. And you know the implication of the rest, on the rest of the world. I don't think the West is going in that regard. But if they do so, nobody can tell what's next.
All right, well, Sophie, he's so calm from that piece that we saw, just a little piece of an interview, which I understand you spent. How long did you interview him for?
Well, we had 26 minutes sharp, and that was something that we wrote in a contract, because once again, after the ABC Barbara Walters interview, they got really freaked out about the fact that they recorded 1.5 hours, and then on air it was something about 40 minutes, and in their opinion it was completely distorted. So after that, every journalist that goes there, even the German guy who interviewed a couple of months ago, had to sign this contract that we signed. So it's either we could have had 1 hour with him, but then the press secretary and me, we had to sit down in the Syrian television and edit it, find a compromise of what stays and what goes, or we could have had the exact time of the interview that we would put on air, and then we would sign a contract saying that that would air on RT unedited. So we went for 26 minutes sharp. So we basically recorded as live.
Did you feel like you were sitting and speaking to a man who was losing power, losing control of his country?
I think he's very well aware that he definitely isn't in a position in which he was like 2 years ago or a year and a half ago. He's not crazy.
It seems from the pictures like he's still going about his business.
I think it's more about the fact that he knows that he has no choice. He has made a choice of having no choice, and he has no other way than to fight till the end. And I believe it's not about staying in power for him, and I do believe it's not about himself or his family, because his kids still go to public school in Damascus, and his wife is still there. And he told me, you know, I'm a young man, I love sports, I love life. I could have just picked up and left, like Ben Ali did, for example, you know. This is now Gaddafi, for example. And the thing that really marked me the most is how much more complicated situation inside Syria is than from what we see in the media, because I talked to people. Yes, the country is divided, but even the people who didn't like Assad before this conflict started are now so scared that fundamentalists will come to power, fundamentalists who are fighting on the side of the Free Syrian Army. And Syrian people are not about that. I mean, this is like the only secular Arab country that had a lot of different religious groups always living in peace with each other, whether it's Sunni or Shia or Alawite or Alawis or Christians. So they're really scared that if Assad goes, the army will fall apart, and then, you know, you'd have these extremist Muslims coming to them and asking them to basically be just like them. And we actually saw a Twitter for Free Syrian Army, and they had the targets, the people that they want to target to kill. For example, there was this really famous actor that got killed the day we were there, and he got killed because he said that, you know, terrorism isn't going to scare me, and he kissed the Syrian flag. He didn't even say anything about Assad. So they had him as if like a check, like so this one is done. And then this other famous actor came out on a funeral saying that, you know, today all of us are the actor who passed away. And so we saw on Twitter, on their Twitter right away, his picture up here saying, well, you're next, or something like that. Basically, they're targeting also famous people who don't want fundamentalists in power. So it's not just about Assad. I think people feel like whether he goes or stays, it's only can get worse if he goes, because it will get, I mean, the terror attacks will continue and the fundamentalists will come to power. So they're very scared of that.
Just briefly, we talked right before you went, Sophie, and you were not exactly thrilled about going, to be honest. I mean, it's a dangerous place.
I was very scared.
You were scared.
Because I'm not a war reporter, and I'm not used to going to hot
Just briefly, as a human being in Damascus, a lot of people not reporting from there. What was it like for you to be there?
I think when we arrived, that's when the escalation started. Because from what I understand, terrorist attacks in Damascus would take place maybe every 2 weeks, or like 2 or 3 times.
And they're escalating.
Yeah, and then we arrived, and every day that we were there for 3.5 days, we had 2 to 3 terrorist attacks. For example, I dared to go into town, walk around the market, talk to people. I even bought an abaya, and it was around 2 o'clock in the afternoon, so you could see all these elementary school kids that flooded those little streets of where the market is, and they were just so beautiful with their like blue shirts, and I was taking pictures of them. And then we went home, and it turns out right at that moment when I was taking photos of those kids, like maybe 10 minutes away from where I was taking pictures, an explosion went on, and 11 kids just like that died. So when you walk in those streets, it doesn't really faze you that you could be targeted or die in a terrorist attack anytime, because that really sort of puts you in a state of cognitive dissonance, because from one hand life goes on because people really have no choice. I mean, they have nowhere to go. No one gives them visas. Even if they wanted to go, they couldn't. So it's business as usual. I mean, I would hear bombings, mortar shellings throughout the day and night, and I was very scared because I'm not used to the sound. You know, you really have to be used to the sound. But then, you know, we had this beautiful bride and a groom in the hallway of our hotel having their wedding as the mortar shells were going on. So
it's amazing, really, how life does go on. Sophie on her experience in Damascus and interview with President Bashar al-Assad.